herself has Yemeni heritage. Hi Jade, how are you doing?
Hi, not bad. How are you?
I'm doing good as well, thank you. So let's just clear up for anybody that's not fully aware. How are you linked to Yemen?
So my grandfather Mohammed was Yemeni. He was from Aden, and he came over to the UK in the 60s, I believe. Obviously, at that time there was war in Yemen, and I'm sure, bless him, he's not with me anymore. But I'm sure he would be very upset and unsettled at what is happening today. So yeah, that's basically where my sort of Yemeni heritage lies. And yeah, growing up, I grew up around a very predominant sort of Arab community in the northeast. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear about your granddad, Jade, but thanks for sharing that with us. And we want to hear where everyone else is from as well. So leave a comment in the section below. So you kind of mentioned you grew up in an Arab community. So in terms of how open you were about your Arab heritage and your family, is it something that you guys are proud of, that you talk about a lot, you discuss?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely from a young age, because I was in a town called South Shields, and there's a very large Arab community called Laygate, which is where I grew up, and I lived right next to the mosque, and obviously my granddad would be there every day, and so there was definitely this, amazing sense of community, a very large sort of Yemeni community as well within that, and growing up, yeah, it was very multicultural. And it wasn't until I think I got older and became a teenager and my granddad passing away that I sort of lost that sort of sense of identity for a while. And it's only really since, I'd say, the past few years really, that I've sort of begun to really delve into and accept my Yemeni heritage more and try and understand it more. And because I didn't really have that influence, especially growing up, I didn't really know where to turn or who to look at, who to speak to sort of educate me on that. So I'm kind of making up for lost time and trying to educate myself, especially when it comes to the war in Yemen. All the resources are there if you look for it, but I do think, unfortunately, there's almost like a normalization of tragedy in the Middle East,
Right.
here in the UK. And so it's like, maybe we become a bit numb to it, or we don't see it enough in a way that makes it relatable or that we can understand.
It's the distance,
So
isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And I'm very much still learning myself. And even like the guests on this Insta Live has been great for me to listen to too. And I think my role in this, in terms of joining the live today, is to help raise awareness and encourage other people to learn about the war in Yemen with me. And yeah, basically.
Yeah, I would definitely say anyone that has got questions, just let us know. And we can always, whether it's after this live, we can always put them back to our experts as well. And, we've done a few videos on BBC Minutes page that you can check out if you want to get a background too. So Jade, when did you actually hear about the war in Yemen? And how did you kind of feel when you did hear about it?
Yeah, I think I mean, I have sort of heard about it for a few years, but not really to the extent that I know now. And I guess social media has helped me to find platforms where I can learn more about it, whether it is via BBC. That was one of the first places that I sort of began educating myself on it. There was a Instagram for the International Rescue Committee, and that sort of came up on my feed, and people started to circulate it. I remember there was like a lot of my friends and family were circulating this particular post about the war in Yemen. And the amount of people that I would mention it to who were literally clueless as to what was going on was quite shocking, actually.
Yeah.
And
How did that make
it's
you feel?
pardon?
How does it make you feel knowing that, you yourself have a personal connection to that country, but a lot of people maybe around you or that you were speaking to didn't?
It's really quite tragic, I think. It's incredibly sad. It almost makes me a bit angry as well, and frustrated that people aren't really shown enough about what is going on. I think in mainstream media there isn't enough. Yeah, there isn't enough to show the public what is going on. And like I said before, I feel like there is an awful sort of normalization of what happens in the Middle East, and it's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind thing. And you know, we can't be ignorant to this. It's such a huge, huge crisis in Yemen, and the more of us that become aware of it, you know, the more chances there are of being able to help them, or whether it is through donations or putting pressure on our governments to do something about it. And I think for me as well, that there's a kind of sort of presupposition that the UK has no involvement in this, and if you really sort of delve into it, unfortunately that's not the case. So I think we in the UK have a role in this, and we should be doing more to put pressure on our government to try and help with some sort of peace within Yemen.
Mm-hmm. Is that something you would want to get involved in more? Like, is there any plans that you've got in terms of kind of raising more awareness or helping any causes or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think initially, I think a lot of people, especially when you're in the public eye, you have a sort of fear of saying the wrong thing or not being educated enough in something, and that in turn makes you sort of not scared to speak out, but you just want to make sure that if you do it, you do it in the right way, and that you are actually helpful. So it's taken me a bit of time to sort of, go away and educate myself enough to say, actually, now I feel like I'm ready to use my platform in the right way to raise awareness on this issue. So that's really what I hope to do. And, you know, thank you for asking me to be a part of this as well, because even if some of my fans especially watch this and educate themselves and, you know, find ways of helping, then I feel like that is a role that I can do and do a good job of, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I mean, with our Instagram lives, we want to make sure we're getting different perspectives. So I think it's equally as interesting to hear your perspective. And the stuff that you've kind of been researching and reading around, I'm sure a lot of your followers kind of want to know, okay, what is it can they do as well? Is there any like facts that you've read, or is there something that you learned about Yemen and the crisis there that you think, okay, even if one person goes away today and they've learned this, that it would be a difference?
I think the main thing for me is, you know, I think it's easy to sort of reduce the world to like your own limited experiences. But just because something doesn't exist where you are doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I think the key for me is, education, basically. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. I've found that really helpful. You know, all you have to do is even just to search like on Spotify or via BBC. There was a really amazing podcast called Yemen's Forgotten War, which I listened to and I found really helpful. It's all there. All you have to do is type in on Google the war in Yemen, or what are the best sort of sources to help me educate myself in that. So I found the BBC podcast really great. There was one on The Guardian as well, which I've written down here, called Britain's Role in the Yemen Crisis, because I think that's really interesting as well for us as a British public to learn more on what our involvement is. It's all there ready to look at if you're willing to do so.
And definitely drop us a comment or drop us a message if you do want links to any BBC articles, or, you know, feel free to have a look at some of the videos that we've done on our page. So that's kind of speaking to your followers a bit. But what about with your immediate family, you and your mum, for example? How's you guys kind of talk about Yemen and what's going on there?
Myself and my mum have had many conversations about this now. And it's quite sad, really, that we never really did so before until, I guess, sort of lockdown, really. I feel like during lockdown, there's been many sort of social issues or things that you can't be ignorant to anymore. There's been a surge of people sort of wanting to educate themselves, which is incredible. So I think what's really encouraging for me is last time I went home and saw my mum, without even asking her to, I could see that she'd been researching like on YouTube and on the internet all about the war in Yemen, and that for me is amazing that my mum is really trying to find out for herself and delve into her own heritage too. And I think it's very easy to, when we have our conversations, to feel quite helpless in what you can do to help. And it's quite heavy, I think, when you really read into what's going on. Yeah, it can feel quite heavy, what can I do in this feeling of helplessness? But I think there are so many things you can do. And like you say, I'm sure after this Insta Live, you'll give us some information on that and ways in which we can help.
Yeah, and I mean, we are hearing some hopeful voices. I mean, Nawal, who was just on before, who's a BBC correspondent, she herself is Yemeni too, and she was also hopeful. Is there anything that you kind of hope for the future of Yemen? What you'd like to see happen in the future?
What to hope? I mean, there's so many things, like your guest before said. There's just so many issues within Yemen. I think first and foremost, there needs to be some form of agreement or some level of peace so that we can give as much humanitarian aid as possible to the people there. Because right now, I know that there's a huge struggle in actually getting humanitarian support to these people. So what else would I hope for? I think there's power in raising awareness. We've seen, whether it is with other wars around the world or huge issues like the BLM movement, once people start engaging and using their voice and their platform to raise awareness, the more people that do that, the more we all engage, and the more as a collective we have to be listened to, and governments have to listen and take action. So I think for me that is probably my main hope. And yeah, just something has to be done. Something really has to be done.
We've got a question coming from Aya Ahmed from Egypt. Have you ever visited Yemen, or would you ever want to visit the Middle East in the future? I'm sure a lot of your Middle Eastern fans might be thinking that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to some places in the Middle East. I haven't been to Yemen, but I've always wanted to go. Actually, I had a planned trip quite a while ago, but then I couldn't go because of how unsafe it was. Yeah, I would love to go, and I'd love to, use my voice more to help. And I know that we have, just as an artist as well, I have quite a big Middle Eastern fan base, who I want to reassure that, as someone who is of Middle Eastern heritage myself, I'm trying to understand and help in any way that I can.
And because we have got so many people tuning in everywhere, I'm just going to give a quick shout out. There's some followers tuning in from Turkey. We've got Queen Rita from Indonesia. I'm Rania from Morocco. So yeah, definitely let us know where you're from, and if you've got any questions, we'll try and answer them from anywhere in the world. Jade, one more question that I had was, I mean, you spoke a little bit about, reading into, the UK's involvement as well. Do you think there's something you'd like to see change there if the UK is, it is one of the biggest arms suppliers to Saudi Arabia? Would you like to see something like that change?
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that we, as the UK, are complicit in selling and providing arms to Saudi Arabia, I don't think enough people know about this, and that's really, I mean, yeah, it's insane, to be honest. And I personally really believe that is a violation of international humanitarian law, and it's not okay. And we should really be putting a lot more pressure on the government to not do that, of course, and to try and reach or push for some sort of peace because we as a nation do not want to be complicit or guilty of contributing to a humanitarian crisis and children and families and innocent people dying off the back of that. So yeah, I was actually quite shocked the more that I read into the war in Yemen and our involvement in that. It's really quite disturbing, to be honest.
Yeah, and just to clarify for anyone who is wondering a bit more, so the UK government say that they don't sell arms where there's a risk to human rights violations. So that's their stance on what's happening. Jade, just before you go, we've had one more question come in from a viewer in Finland, Jenna from Finland. Do you feel like people who have a platform should talk about these things a lot more often?
100%, 100%. I think especially when it comes to this topic, in particular the war in Yemen, unfortunately I've hardly seen any celebrities as such discussing the matter, and I find that quite sad, really. And you know, I guess it is all relative, and you know, I think it's mainly maybe out of fear of not really understanding what's going on enough. And when you put your voice to something, you're then putting yourself on a pedestal where people might ask you questions that you may not know the answer to. And I've had to sort of struggle with that conflict within myself of understanding that yes, I am no expert on all the details within the war in Yemen, but I'm trying my best to learn as much as I can, and the most that I can do right now is to keep learning and to use my voice and use my platform and try and raise awareness and donate and do all these things that, you know, will make a difference. But I would love to see more people in the public eye raising awareness on the war in Yemen, for sure.
Thanks so much for joining us, Jade. And we look forward to catching up with you about how you're getting on, educating yourself more about Yemen maybe in a little while.
Thank you. I just want to quickly say as well, sorry, any of the fans that are on this live that are maybe asking ridiculous questions, whether it's about my hair or the music or whatever, I would channel that energy that you're using in the way that I look or how I perform on my music, channel that energy and actually put it into some good and research into Yemen. I would much rather you did that today than try to find out what makeup I've used today. Do you know what I mean? I'd love for you to use that instead and educate yourself and make sure that's, you know, the thing that you do today.
And the first thing you can do is we've got videos that are right up on our page. The latest 2 videos we've uploaded are specifically on Yemen, one of them looking at young people in Yemen as well. So feel free to check those out if you don't know where to start. But thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Bye.
And we want to make sure that we're answering as many questions as